I think we have the ones we're going to have. Okay, Marcia, thank you. Good. While we've been in this room discussing frameworks and initiatives, we have 6 innovators in the room that have been out there building things, the real stuff, not the abstract stuff. In Sudan, in the Philippines, in Kenya, in Nigeria, and in Nepal, in the communities most exposed to risk. Now, if you ask me, that's really exciting because we can see what really matters from the discussions we're having and how that can have an impact on the ground. But what we can also see is that what they're doing on the ground has an impact, but it also supports us. So here is what this session is. At GRP, we run innovation challenges, basically calls for proposals with our partners, and we've done so for over a decade. At the moment, our challenges include RAIN, which is nature positive agriculture, RISE, which is urban resilience in informal settlements, Tech for Resilience, you get what that means, and Hindu Kush, Himalaya, an ice challenge happening up in that region. Together, those challenges have surfaced over 100 solutions, many thousands of applications, in more than 30 countries, and we have dispersed over 45 million into various forms of resilience programming, reaching more than 7 million people. Now, 45 million is not the point. The point is what happens after it, and that's what we're going to discuss today, a little bit more. Because we're not really meant to be in the business of running competitions at GRP, or anywhere for that matter. We're in the business of nurturing and building on ecosystems of locally led, evidence-backed solutions that are ready to scale if the right capital finds them. And that's why we're here. At GRP, we're working at the early stages of a pipeline. We need a much bigger pipeline of projects, of fundable initiatives, because if we don't, everyone will go to the same kind of grantee project. So we need many more. It's building on that ecosystem. We find pilots, we test ideas, we help founders and entrepreneurs find their footing, we hope. They do all the hard work, we just basically support. And then this keeps me up at night. Most of those solutions find it very difficult, and some of them stall. Not because they don't work, they work, but the part of the journey that should be a path, a proven innovation, finding the right kind of investment that takes it from hundreds of beneficiaries to hundreds of thousands. It's not a path, there's a gap. There's sort of a dead zone. And that is why this session exists. Not to showcase projects, well, it is to showcase projects, sorry guys. It's not to hand out prizes though, it's to start conversations that close that gap. Absolutely critical conversations. One of our dragons at COP30 last year, when we did a similar kind of thing, said something that I thought was quite spot on. They said that they hoped we wouldn't just give money and wish people good luck. They said they wish we continue to connect and facilitate and learn more and make more connections. Again, that is precisely why we're here. Today, we have 6 locally led, 6 locally anchored resilience innovators pitching to 5 dragons, 3 minutes each. I'm sorry, guys, but it's 3 minutes. The dragons will push back. That's what we've asked them to do and what they do sort of naturally, the ones I know of the dragons anyway. Each of them brings a specific lens and a specific question that they're trying to answer about what makes a resilience innovation worth backing. If you ask me, a former entrepreneur who used to pitch and sometimes succeed in raising funds, the absolutely best outcome is that a conversation starts. Very few walk away with a check in the back of their pocket. You start the conversation and that leads to something, to more conversations, to more contacts. And that is how the best solutions are identified and find the support they need. It's hard work by the entrepreneurs. They have to do like 2 magic things. One is driving real change on the ground. I'm fortunate enough to know these entrepreneurs, or what they do at the least, and they're pretty amazing. The other really difficult thing they need to do is come and talk to you guys, because you are scary, you're an audience. And the dragons are also quite scary. Our moderator is Julia, the GRP's private sector senior expert, and she will keep us moving at the fast pace this session calls for. And that's all for me. Thank you. And over to you, Julia.
Thank you, Jasper. All right, I'll give our dragons a second to sit down, and then I'll let them introduce themselves. You can say your names, organizations, and one sentence about what you're focusing on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jason Chow. I'm with the Gates Foundation, and I manage one of our portfolios around learning and innovation in the humanitarian sector.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yalis Torretta from the Trafigura Foundation, where I'm responsible for impact investing, mainly through blended finance funds and opportunities.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Luan Muntz, and I work for Acumen. We're a patient impact investor, focusing on emerging markets, and have a real focus on early-stage social entrepreneurs that focus on adaptation and resilience.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ade Jimbo. I work with Autodex Foundation, and I focus on our climate adaptation and resilience portfolio, where we think about how can we use technology to de-risk adaptation solutions.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina Clunas. I'm with the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, and I cover our kind of portfolio of programs across Africa.
Awesome. So we have a great panel of dragons, and then here's how it's going to work. We have 2 rounds of pitches, 3 non-profit innovators, 3 for-profit innovators. Each innovator, as Jasper said, has 3 minutes. I'll be strict on time. Then dragons, you have 15 minutes after each cohort to react, ask questions, give them some feedback. After both rounds, we have a Q&A session, so the audience can ask questions, give feedback as well to the innovators, or you can ask questions to the dragons, or you can make an investment offer. That's your time. So we'll start with the nonprofits. Nuha, you're first.
Okay, so my name is Noah Eltinay, and I will break down my pitch into 3 key parts. What is our ask? Why should you invest in the Raja AI for Sudan? And how will that maximize the benefit of your investment? A weather forecast can save your life, but only if you understand it. The Raja Plus AI uses large language models and text-to-speech technologies to transform technical weather and climate forecasts into simple voice alerts adapted to local dialects and languages. Operating since 2024, the Raja warnings already reach more than 10.5 million people across Sudan through a mix of mobile networks, social media, WhatsApp, local radio, and local organizations. If this is not exciting enough, then let me tell you one fact. This was achieved amidst the world's largest humanitarian crisis in 2025-26, with over 30 million people requiring humanitarian assistance, displaced, and 20 million people facing acute food insecurity. Not only that, there's more than 120 dialects and local languages spoken in Sudan, yet official warnings are only issued in one language, Arabic. And with adult literacy reaching an average below 60%, text-based systems structurally exclude the most vulnerable. So our ask here is for 250Ks to develop AI-powered, multilingual, audio-based early warnings that communities can act on. This will serve 3 undeserved languages spoken by more than 1.2 million each, located in the most vulnerable regions of northern Sudan and Red Sea Mountains, speaking the languages of Bedouin, Tigray, and Nubian. Now, we come to the so what question. Our vision goes beyond Sudan. The Raja already operates across 5 East African countries through partnerships with National Med Services. We're raising an additional 10 million and entering into strategic partnerships to replicate the Sudan Plus AI model and building a new layer to an already existing functioning ecosystem, providing a pathway to upscale this innovation across the region. With your support, we will not simply build a better warning system, but we will create a scalable model of communication at the grassroots level. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nuha. I'll keep going. Salma, you're next.
Every year there is 20 typhoons hit the Philippines. That's 1 or 2 typhoons a month. Every time a flood warning occurs, there are around a flood warning goes out in Metro Manila. There is million people that receive the same message, but not everyone faces the same risk. There's around 4 million people lives in flood-prone informal settlement across Metro Manila. Many of them are internal migrant workers who came to the city seeking a better life, but found themselves living in the most exposed area with the least protection. When a flood hits, these families have minutes to ask, are we in danger? How bad it will get? Where should we go? And instead, they get the same generic alert as everyone else. Others that assume internet access they might not have and were never designed with them in mind. I am Selma, an AI engineer at Migration, a nonprofit organization that works closely with migrant communities across Asia and 50+ jurisdictions 2018. Our vision is to, as we help the migrant communities abroad, we're now building for them back home. Our solution is an AI-powered climate forecasting and early warning system that works with not parallel to the existing government advisories. It works to, we can consider it the last mile layer that turned this government warning into a guidance that actually reached the people most at risk. Our solution starts with special data set consists of population density, elevation, hazard data, informant settlement maps, all mapped across 5,643 hyperlocal microunits. Each is a roughly size of a city block. Then we run a hazard forecasting on each of these specific area, making sure that we pulling multiple weather data from accredited sources. After that, a multimodal delivery occurred where when the flood happens, we don't just warn people, we tell them exactly where are the closest safer area and how to get there through SMS and network districts, making sure that it's offline and in their own local language. We are raising $1.5 million to fund system development, AI training, community partnership, and that's going to help us. Fund is over 3 years, going to take us from piloting our project into the high-risk district in Metro Manila to the full coverage of the National Capital Region, then globally to cities such as Jakarta, Indonesia, and Mumbai, India. That fund going to help more than 49.7 million people and 24 to 38 hours advance warning and less than 5% false alarm. Thank you.
Excellent. We're doing really well on time. Patrick, you're next.
I hope I don't let you down. Climate finance is failing frontline communities. At COP26, 1.7 billion was pledged to support Indigenous peoples and local communities, yet only 17% of that money actually reaches them directly. This young herder in Ilnagwezi Conservancy in Laikipia, Kenya, puts it much better than I can. Far too often, those who are making the necessary sacrifices to protect and conserve their land are excluded from the value they generate. And worsening climate shocks mean many communities face a poverty environment trap, forced to degrade their own environment just to survive. The Climate Commons Fund is designed to address this challenge. Modeled on wealth funds in places like Alaska and Brazil, it converts the value of nature into a community-owned endowment fund that generates real returns. No more three-year grant cycles, just permanent, sustainable financial infrastructure. So how does it work? Every community member receives an individual, unconditional lump sum cash payment, twinned with support to build climate resilience. In addition, they also receive an annual conservation dividend, which is indexed to verifiable ecological indicators. That means that when nature improves, payments go up. We spent the last year co-designing the fund with Ilnagwezi, one of Kenya's oldest community conservancies. And this August, thanks to the Rain Challenge, we'll launch a proof of concept providing a cash payment and enrollment in the fund to a small cohort of Ilnagwezi residents. And as we scale, we'll continue to enroll more people until all 3,000 community members are receiving payments. We're seeking 250K to structure the fund and build the ecological monitoring framework that we need. Full capitalization will cost just $2,000 per person, helping to protect 10,000 hectares of rich biodiverse land and helping to address poverty for everyone in Ilnagwezi. But the fund's about more than that. This fund is a pilot for a new type of climate finance infrastructure, scalable globally. And we're already developing similar concepts to this in Brazil, Bangladesh, and Bristol. It creates an innovative incentive structure to empower communities and ensure that conservation gains are not lost. And it provides a mechanism for donors to distribute climate finance directly and transparently. With the Climate Commons Fund, approximately 80% of all money raised will go directly to local communities, not 17%. If you believe communities have an equal right to a share of the natural wealth that they protect, this is how we make that happen. Thank you.
Right on time. Thank you. 3 different entry points into this conversation, 3 nonprofit solutions that we know, as Jasper mentioned in the beginning, we know them really well because we've been lucky to work with them through our innovation challenges. And now, Dragons, the floor is yours. We have 15 minutes.
Shall I kick off? Okay, let's just do this. Thank you so much for your presentations. It's really great to hear about your initiatives, and I like the common theme around climate and weather information and also around kind of protecting people's rights. Really important issues that we should be focusing on. I had a couple of questions that's linked to both the Daraja work and the Pro Alerts. I wanted to understand a little bit more about what comes next. So I agree with you on we need to kind of scale information and get that information to the right people at the right time. How do you also connect those people to any resources they might need if they have to move in the event of a crisis? And then the second question I have on the Climate Commons Fund, I'd like to know a little bit more about your ecological monitoring framework and how you've learned from other natural capital projects to make this a success.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the presentations. They were very helpful. So my first question would be for equal rights. I'm curious how you price your adaptation benefits or your conservation benefits if you are sending a lump sum ahead of those conservation efforts. So that's the first thing I'm curious about. And the second thing would be, like, what proof points are you looking at that is needed to attract other institutional investors for your fund? For Daraja, AI, and Pro Alerts, really interesting work. I think it's very important to figure out how we ensure we get data out there. I think one question I had would be, like, what specifically does the AI layer add that is not done without AI? Like, how are we ensuring that we're actually being additive with the AI layer? And the second thing, I think it's more of like a feedback for Pro Alerts. I think it's very crucial. The fact that you're doing migrant population is key because these are populations that are not static, they are more mobile, right? So community mapping that is done to target population moves, I think bringing that more out in your pitch will be very helpful to convey the importance of your work.
Lots of questions. At what point do we need to pause? Just cognizant. Should we do one round?
We'll do one round.
Okay. I think I'll also stick to the Daraja and Pro Alerts pitches first. And again, just massive congrats. I mean, really amazing seeing this work being done on the ground and incredible amount of work, I'm sure. So I mean, I think my sort of first question is also, AI is quite the hype at the moment, and so it'll be a question around competition and what is your moat? What sort of prohibits another competitor to deliver the same service to your sort of target audience? So that for us is really important when it comes to sort of competition and innovation from a sort of investment point of view, even though I know you are a non-profit. Secondly, is from a utility rate point of view. So AI is really, and with digital infrastructure, it's really easy to provide access, and you can cast the net really wide. But I'd want to sort of understand whether you've got any data to back up what is the actual usage and what do those individuals actually do with that information then? A little bit to your question of what comes next. It's one thing to say you've reached 20 million people. If only 5 people have actually used it, then is it actually valuable? So that's sort of another question. And then, again, something to think about is really the sustainability plan. So what's your cost per unit? Might it be, how much does it cost to reach each individual? What's your funding structure going to look like? Partners might be government, it's a non-profit, but what other sort of structures are you considering that'll enable you to build out a sustainable business over time?
Thank you. Also from my side, thank you very much for all the energy, all the effort that you're putting in developing these solutions. I think, funny enough, we were just laughing when the first question was asked, what is next? I think that that's also something that struck me, right? I mean, the 10 million people that got the information, but, first of all, does that translate in increased resilience? What happens with this information? What do these people do? And this linked also to, again, right, planning on how to scale. You don't want to put a price point, but who would be out there paying potentially for such a information to do what, right? If you want to scale at a certain point, can this be integrated in the meteorological system, or really to think what comes next? And I think the same in the Philippines, right? What type of, the people get the information, but what comes next? Which other partners could you partner with to ensure that, there is the information that is delivered, but, there is a real resilience after that? Could it be insurance? Could it be, to think along the partnership line, who could provide the capital? And on the endowment fund, I'm just curious, who is funding the endowment fund itself, and whether the community that receives the lump sum, yes, but also what is their livelihood, right? We have seen conservation model where it's more than just conservation, where other revenue streams can be embedded in the conservation that make, both sides more sustainable long-term.
Thanks. Well, I just want to thank everyone. Those were wonderful pitches. There was a lot of common themes around hyper-local approaches, around making sure that we're really reaching those final communities, and so those are really great to see. I think for Daraja, question similar to my colleagues, but maybe from a slightly different bent is, when you're talking about the use of AI, it sounded to me like it was primarily for translation. And I understand the need to want to make these messages, important messages, available in other languages, but I do think it's worth thinking about how AI could potentially strengthen the early warning systems. If it's just translating what's already out there from the meteorological authority, that's one thing, but I think the business case is stronger if you're using AI to improve existing early warning systems. That would also help you refine who the target demographic is for that type of product. For Migration Center, maybe just a thought. I mean, you have very ambitious plans. When I hear you talk about scaling into Jakarta and Mumbai and these places, maybe just a note of caution. I think it's maybe go go slow and make sure you're going right. And I also think it's important to think about how in some of these places where you may not be operationally active, how you can build trust in those communities. Because I think one of the things that you're proposing in your business case that you're going to be providing more local and sort of neighborhood-specific guidance to them, right? So they really need to trust who you are. And then for equal right, just a consideration, I know in a lot of these places, some of these livelihoods like pastoralism, they're not just a livelihood, they're sort of a cultural identity, and simply saying people, don't do this, here's $2,000, something to think about. I also don't know how the 2,000 or the lump sum you mentioned, how that compares with what people are generating if they're engaging in their traditional activities. So I think understanding that relationship would be important. Thanks.
Thank you. We have maybe another minute each if you want to just comment, and then we'll pick up some of these threads in the Q&A.
Yes, please. 1 minute for all of these questions. That's not fair. But I'll try my best. Maybe grouping them into two, and also I just hand over in 30 seconds split. The impact beyond the knowledge information. So our vision is that the climate data is also looking into two aspects. The first one is social protection, because we've mentioned the most vulnerable communities and the humanitarian aid. So if the climate and weather information can feed into anticipatory action, then we can ensure that farmers and herder communities can actually have an impact on the economic resilience level. The other element, which is currently, unfortunately, ongoing, is the conflict and the safe routes of moving from one area to the other, because that also feed into the climate and early warnings. And for the business case, in terms of the AI model, another element that we are aiming, once the languages has been translated into the local dialects, then we also, in other projects that also the Sudan Urban Development Think Tank is working on, is called Idea Map Sudan, where we already map the most vulnerable communities using geospatial information that can overlay with our climate data.
We'll continue in the Q&A.
First of all, thank you so much for back and questions. So I think I might summarize everything first of the integration and how we're going. So we mainly going to integrate this to the government. We already had meeting with the Philippines government, specifically for the Quezon City, which is one of the cities in Metro Manila. And they showed their interest on, yes, we want a hyper-local last mile that reach these people, because sometimes all the other there are very general on a very border area. So sometimes I might maybe suspend schools in an area that actually was safe. So integrating this with them would make sure that we're scaling and funding for it. So using this existing funding for them, it will going to fund the project itself. For the AI mode, so I basically believe that our mode is in the data itself, because we are targeting informant settlements and migrant worker working in informant settlements. So collecting this data, we are using AI to detect the informant settlement inside Metro Manila, and then adding this to the data and training our AI on it. So I believe more of the AI as a mode. No, the data is the mode for us. I think how we are building that trust. So Migration, we have been there for 2018. So we already helped a lot of migrant workers, and the majority of our beneficiaries are Filipinos, Indonesian, and Indian. So already, I believe we had that trust with the community there. So instead of also, in addition of helping them abroad, we also helping them when they repatriate back home. So I believe that this might be something highlight for us. Thank you.
Thanks. Got it. Hard to sum up in a minute. On the ecological monitoring framework, there are models out there we're learning from, including one on the island of Principe that recently launched, the Nature Dividend Program. We also co-founded a community of practice called the Cash for Conservation Group, where we're bringing in all these ideas from all over the world that are working in relevant fields. How do we price the payments? And I think that picks up on a bit of what Jason was asking as well. We're working with Give Directly, who are a major provider of unconditional cash transfers in Kenya and across Africa, and we're learning from their best best practice in terms of the amount needed to really provoke investment in alternative livelihoods. In terms of other revenues within the community, one thing I didn't have in my pitch was that Ilnaguazi have committed to match fund what we raised 10% from their existing carbon credit and ecotourism revenues. So they are quite well developed already as a community, so they're an ideal pilot partner in that regard. And they already have done a lot of work around pastoralism and around creating the right incentives to support the community whilst also transitioning into more sustainable livelihoods. And in terms of who funds it, primarily philanthropy. Honestly, that is going to have to make up the most of it, but we are looking at blended finance models and how we could have a product that is appeals to investors.
Thank you. And we'll pick up on some of these threads in the panel later on, the what's next question, the what's AI doing question. But now let's move to the next round. We have for-profit solutions pitching. And we're starting with Favor Shade.
We are building something that no one has ever built before, and I want to tell you why. Aisha is 21 years old and pregnant for the 4th time. Through her previous 3 pregnancies, she nearly bled to death. She survived by luck, not by design. Her delivery falls during the rainy season, and her community floods every time it rains. Yet no one knows she exists. Aisha is not alone. 4.4 million people are displaced in one flood season in Nigeria. 80% of them are women and girls. 75,000 maternal deaths occur every year, yet these women have become invisible to every system that should find them. My name is Favor, I'm a pharmacist, and with my team of GIS analysts, engineers, and medical experts, we have built OSH-Aid Hours, the first anticipatory sexual and reproductive health and rights triage in climate crisis. This is how it works. A woman or a field worker takes an AI-driven questionnaire scored against live flood forecasts. 2 weeks before a flooding occurs, early warning alerts are sent and supplies get prepositioned. At 72 hours, responders mobilize and referrals activate. By the time the water rises, the system has already found Aisha. This is what makes us different. Existing systems either predict the flood or the response to crisis. We are the first to integrate sexual and reproductive health and rights triage with climate forecasting in one anticipatory system. Our market is 80% of women and girls who floods cut off from care. Government and humanitarian organizations spend heavily on disaster, but barely 1% on anticipatory action. They pay us a recurring license for every state we cover. This system functions offline in 3 local Nigerian languages, backed by 5 state and national partners. Our phase 1 target takes us to 10,000 people with a projected 30% reduction in preventable complications. $200,000 will take us from 1 state to 5 states, and from 10,000 people to 50,000 people. And this is just Nigeria. By 2030, we aim to expand to 2 additional African countries. The next flood season is coming. Aisha is waiting. Join us and we'll find her before the flood does.
Great, thank you. Salma, you're next. Oh, Shweta, I'm sorry.
Hello everyone, I'm Sweta Sizapati, Partnership Manager at Build Up Nepal. I met Lakshmi Dangi in 2024 in a very remote and earthquake-affected village of Nepal. Like most women in her communities, she was living in an unsafe house. Work was scarce, and the idea of starting a new business was something impossible. Today, Lakshmi runs her own eco-brick enterprise. She has already built 25 homes and employs 5 people from the marginalized community. Example of Lakshmi is not exceptional. sees a proof of what's possible when you back right people with the right model. Here is the reality. Nepal is one of the most disaster-prone countries of the world, with 1.5 million families living in unsafe houses. They are desperate to build something better, but they cannot afford it because the most common construction material, the fire bricks, it's not only expensive, it is a major source of CO2 emission. At Build Up Nepal, we are doing things differently. We are training local entrepreneurs like Lakshmi to produce eco-friendly bricks and build safe and affordable houses. Compared to the traditional fire bricks, our bricks home are 75% lower in CO2 emission, it's 25% cheaper to build, and it's disaster resilient. And what makes our model unique is it's locally led. It's finally sustaining, and 95% of the houses are built by the low-income families themselves. Since 2015, we have supported 220 entrepreneurs who have built 12,000 plus houses, created 1,900 plus green jobs, and reduced 122,000 tons of CO2 emission. We are a proud winner of this year's Joyous Sustainability Prize in Climate Action and a 2024 Earthcert finalist. The single biggest opportunity to unlock more entrepreneurs is the early stage finance. All of our entrepreneurs, they invest in machines, training, and quality control long before the demand is steady. And the initial first 2 years are critical. This is where carbon finance comes in. Every eco-brick home avoids verifiable amount of CO2, and by turning those savings into upfront revenue, we can de-risk the early years for these entrepreneurs and ensure that our entrepreneurs are at break-even. By 2030, we plan to build 50,000 homes, support 500 entrepreneurs, and reduce 500,000 tons and expand across South Asia. To get there, we are raising 2.5 million in grant funding. We have already raised half of it, and we are looking for bold new partners who can support the final mile with quality control, access to finance, demand creation, and policy support. We believe safe homes and resilient livelihood should not be a privilege. If you are looking to fund a solution that is scalable at the intersection of climate and resilience, I would love to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta. And Helen for our final for-profit pitch.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Helene Verbeek, and I'm a co-founder of the Green Intelligence. Farmers across the world know that the conventional farming system is broken. Input costs are rising, yields are becoming more and more unpredictable, and they're the ones at the front lines of climate change. Many of them already believe in agroforestry. They know what a tree-based, diverse system does for their resilience. But making the transition requires real support, both in terms of knowledge, access to inputs, but most critically, access to markets that makes this transition financially viable. The Green Intelligence works directly with farmers on the ground across Kenya and Nepal. We implement smart agroforestry systems, we provide trainings and access to inputs. But alongside, we've developed a farmer-centric digital application that allows farmers to capture the data, to gather markets, enter markets for both carbon and market access, and enter 2 revenue streams simultaneously. Carbon markets are growing fast. Our application is gold standard compliant and directly sees where the carbon is coming from, and farmers earn advanced digital monetary payments and receive early incomes before trees mature. Also, the demand for traceable, nature-positive, regenerative produce is growing fast. And our app allows traceable data to prove for the insetting requirements companies are looking for. We are beyond the proof of concept. We are already operational across 2 countries. 1,600 farmers are actively using the app, and 450,000 trees are growing under this model. We have activated our first regenerative, traceable agroforestry supply chain, and other agroforestry demand for other agroforestry is generated. And what is unique is who is capturing the data. It's the farmers themselves and the community helpers in the field that capture the data and receive instant digital wallet payments. We are looking for $25,000 to establish regional aggregation hubs, roll out certification schemes, and have automatic ink-setting data calculations for Kenya. And we're looking for a further $1 million in de-risking capital to unlock a further $15 million in commercial financing to onboard 25,000 agroforestry farmers and restore 8,000 hectares across Nepal. If you are serious about traceable supply chain, scope 3 accountability, and returns from nature-positive agriculture, we would love to talk.
Thank you. So a very different cohort of market-facing solutions. And Dragons, what's your take?
Yeah. Well, thank you to all the presenters. Favor. I really like the confidence that you're building something that hasn't been seen before. I have some questions around the accuracy of, it sounds like a lot of the models is trying to build off weather data, and you're looking at things like 90 days out, 2 weeks out. So just in terms of your confidence level in that information, it also sounded like most of the AI was used for the supply chain in terms of making sure that facilities had commodities and materials so that there wouldn't be stockouts. But I guess it wasn't clear to me how that's addressing the issue in terms of access to those facilities if there is a flood. So I do think it's worth thinking about the larger model and where the AI tools come into play. And then for Shweta, it sounds like you have a wonderful initiative. It also sounds very sustainable. I'm not sure, this was not on your slide, but it was in the material that was sent about the timeline to be able to rebuild a house. I think it was like 12 to 18 months of income from a family. Like they could pay back the cost of the house over 12 to 18 months. Okay, so it sounds like there's already a sustainability plan in there in terms of that there's a fixed price point and that people can work towards that objective of owning their own house. And so I guess my question would be, does that require external funding from other donors then if you already have a good business plan and people should understand the value of the house, right? I mean, are they willing to just pay for the house themselves? That's the question I have for you.
Thank you. I'll be brief because I want to hear from you more than what we can say. On Harsha, that I was just wondering, being a for-profit, I always have this hat who is paying for the service, right? Who is benefiting? Who is saving money? Particularly thinking of anticipatory action, who is saving that money that, comes if the anticipatory action is not put into place, and to whom you can tap into to say, look, there is a saving. If you invest before, there is money that can be saved. Whether it's the patient, I don't know, or somebody else across the value chain, I haven't been able to identify that. On Build Nepal, I had a similar question, right? And maybe I misunderstood, are the entrepreneurs or the people who are building the house are going to be able to repay the house? Because I see almost two different streams of capital, right? One is you need working capital for the entrepreneurs to start the business, and then there is the financing of the house. And I've looked at the similar model in another geography, and they're working with the government, for instance, who has subsidies for climate resilience housing, and so they're basically just needing investor to put up the upfront capital, but then the subsidies from the government that go to the community or the people are going to be able to cover that. So that would be a question, whether the Nepalese government has any funding to fund these opportunities. And on green intelligence, I was just curious about the carbon component, right? Carbon can be very positive, but can also be a curse. There are a lot of reputational risk linked to carbon. There are a lot of models. Look at, the clean cooking stove that rely too much on carbons and that have failed. How strong is the reliance on carbon? And on the other side, on the connection with the market through the platform, how strong is the presence on the market for these farmers? Yes.
Thanks. Very, very similar questions, but maybe I'll try and reframe it slightly. I guess quickly on Hoshay, really, really awesome concept. And again, just thinking about that single customer risk. If it's only the government that might be a potential off-taker or source of revenue. At Acumen, we've had models that have been like that, and it's become problematic over time. Government shift, priority shift. So I think thinking about private sector engagement, different revenue models, I think is going to be really important for your sustainability plan. Build Up Nepal, I think, again, similar, but I also understood it as, again, trying to understand that model really carefully, because the ultimate customer can pay, that's fantastic, and they might get some benefit. Then I see there's an entrepreneur node in the supply chain, and then there's Build Up. So as an investor, we would invest in Build Up. So we would want to understand what's your economics, what's your unit economics, when do you break even, what's your EBITDA. So I think that's really important. And just thinking about scale. It sounds like the product is incredibly innovative. You've tapped into carbon markets. It seems like a no-brainer. So, to your question, I think it's, that investment is really something that could scale and could sort of accelerate the growth. But what's been stopping you? Why have, is this now the moment? Is this the right moment? And what are the sort of things that you're thinking about? And finally, green intelligence. Again, similar question. Just want to understand the revenue split between credits and other revenues, if there is. In our experience, having models that's purely focused on credit risk, carbon credits could be challenging. Who funds the upfront payments? I think that's also something that comes to my mind. You had sort of mentioned something about upfront payments to the farmers, and that sort of seems to me like a potential working capital challenge. And then, while the farmers are providing the data, I think with carbon credits, there's also a large component of validation and audit, and who's sort of going to pick that bill up, and then how that sort of fits into your sustainability plan. So,
Thank you. Those are very interesting pitches. Thank you all. I'll start with Hush Aid. So I'm curious about, because what you're working on is very sensitive. So I'm curious about how you tackle like trust with communities, data privacy, curious how you handle that. The second thing, touching on what people already talked about, is like the payments, especially in Nigeria, for example, where the healthcare system is already stressed. How are you tackling conveying that importance of your solution to the already stressed healthcare system? Like, curious about how that plays into your unit economics. For green intelligence, I'm just curious about how you expose your farmer incomes are to carbon price volatility, how you're tackling that. And also, I didn't quite get exactly like what your own particular like value add would be, what your own particular business model and revenue for green intelligence as a separate from the farmers. And then for Build Up Nepal, great work. Just wanted to understand more about how you think about transferring your model across Southeast Asia.
Okay, I'll be super fast. I had a lot of the same questions. Thanks very much for your pitches, really interesting. I think on the Hushaid, for your project, a really interesting proposition, and I think I can understand the need side. I think I was struggling to understand sort of where are the failings in the current system that mean you can't use existing forecasting and getting pre-positioning through kind of government kind of systems or through kind of humanitarian sector, and why this kind of new proposal, what value add is this new proposition, and then how do you, maybe could you link that to existing services to make it kind of sustainable and linked into kind of also that building that capacity of the health system as well at the same time. And then on the build up Nepal, I had the same question as I think it was Luan. I wanted to understand more about what is your investment model. I wanted to understand a little bit more about how do you work with kind of existing companies in Nepal that are providing kind of building services, and because essentially that it looks like it's already very successful. So I just wanted to understand if somebody's investing in Build Up Nepal, yeah, what are they investing in, and where is it going, and what's your kind of exit strategy, especially because you mentioned around you're still raising grant finance. So what happens when that's no longer there? And then on the last one, on green intelligence, I struggled to kind of understand a little bit about what is an investor buying. Is it into the kind of app, or is it into the regional aggregation hub? So I think I'd, again, just like to understand that a little bit more, and then what the kind of returns would be on that for an investor.
Thank you. We'll have 1 minute each for quick responses. One generous minute, but 1 minute.
Okay, I will start by talking about the accuracy of the system. So we are using global climate forecasts sets like Area 5 and CHIPS, and they have been integrated into our system, right? So that's what we use for our forecast. We divided this forecast into 90, 2 weeks, and 72 hours, because the 90 days is like a seasonal trend, and the 2 weeks is like, okay, flood is rising, you need to act, and 72 hours means that they have to act at that instant. So that's why it's a tier alert system. And also, we also understand that getting the trust of the community is very important, because if we send out false alerts, at the end of the day, it would reduce the trust of the community. Then, okay, so our major focus for our revenue is humanitarian organizations and government. Now, in Nigeria, according to statistics, over $6.6 billion is spent on disaster, that's responding after the disaster has occurred. And these organizations do not know where the risks are rising. So our system is like a health surveillance system, but in climate crisis, where you can see where the risk is rising and send out supplies to those communities. So they are the ones that pay for this system.
So let me clear the revenue sources for Build Up Nepal. So we are making money from sale of machine to the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs, we do not provide the machines for free, they have to pay it. Besides that, we are undertaking different construction projects like schools construction, health posts, and public buildings. Besides that, there are grants from local and international organizations like FCDO, we have DFAT, there is IUM, Practical Action. We are undertaking a lot of projects from the national and international organization. So that is our source of income. Talking about the beneficiaries, right? The subsidy from government. So it's basically for the house owner. It's basically for the house owner whose houses has been impacted due to the disasters. So that goes directly to the house owner. And regarding the model, like we do not provide the machines only. We empower the entrepreneurs and they invest their hard-earned money of around like 4,500 to 7,000 USD in terms of creating their business, starting their business. And we support them with the necessary training to produce the eco-bricks and build disaster-resilient houses. In terms of cost saving, just the last one. Cost saving, the house owners, they can build a house with our eco-bricks just at USD 3,000 to 5,000. That's around 25% of cost saving compared to the traditional fire bricks that's used in Nepal. So that's all for today.
Yes, so let me elaborate a little bit more specifically on the model and where the investment is requested. So we believe that a holistic model works. So the carbon market is very volatile. There are a lot of challenges, and we're very aware of that. And it takes us time to navigate, find the right partners in government, in terms of investment, the right investors as well. And alongside that, we have also CSR, so companies committing to restore landscapes through us. So while we navigate the other path, we have also commercial companies committing to restore through our platform, because it's super transparent. You see the trees, you see the farmers. And what we see is missing in a lot of these programs is it's stopping there, but where you really help the farmer and where there's a lot of market is also the market component for these harvests. So it's a holistic model. There are two investments we are looking for. So specifically for carbon credits, it's to do the whole certification. It's also a long trajectory, and roll out a program even more to prove to other investors what's already happening on the ground in larger scale, and also hardcore infrastructure for aggregation. We have already buyers buying our products from our farmers, and we want to scale also in that. So thank you.
Thank you. So you have now seen 6 innovators, 3 for-profit, 3 non-profit, and we're now going to move to the Q&A part. I have a question for each of our dragons here, taking a bit of a step back, and then we'll open the floor for questions from the audience, more feedback to the dragons, or to our innovators here, perhaps an investment offer. Don't be shy. So, Luan, Acumen built its reputation on patient capital for impactful ventures. And we have had a really nice case of a previous grantee, Mountain Harvest, that graduated from grants to the Acumen portfolio. What would it take to see many more successful graduation stories across the sector?
Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I think first off, we feel very privileged to have been able to be part of Mountain Harvest journey, because like you all, Mountain Harvest, they do the hard work. It's incredible graft. It's in Uganda. It's boots on the ground. So, I mean, as Acumen, we invest in early stage companies, often the first institutional investor. And, what we really look for beyond investing in companies that align with our strategy, like most investors, we have strategies that we build out, sectors, subsectors that we can and can't invest in, regions that we can and can't invest in. But when we go out and look for these companies in our said sectors and regions, we do look for innovators who are bold, who really try and push the edge on innovation. We look at business models that have started to gain proper traction, getting real customers, real growth. We don't necessarily always expect companies to be fully profitable either. We know that our investment might unlock opportunities of growth that might get them to where they need to be. As a first institutional investor, we can take that risk. So it's really getting bold entrepreneurs that are addressing a problem that's, for us, solving a problem of poverty, because that's really what we care about. And really, organizations that are on their path towards scaling.
Great. We'll get more of those. Jason, we had a lot of questions about AI, and we see the tech and AI space moving so fast. Resources are also increasingly concentrated in a few companies. So perhaps a critical time for the AI for climate development, humanitarian aid. What would it take to ensure locally led innovators are shaping how these tools get built, and how do we help innovations like these reach population scale?
It's a great question. I have an easy answer that sounds really great, but it's very difficult in reality. And I'm finding this with some other work we're doing, is that we have a problem getting the right people in the right room together at the right time. There's a lot of people working on these issues. Pick any issue. There's people working on it from very different angles, whether they're in the private sector and they're trying to identify innovation, but they're not speaking with the people that would actually be the end user on the ground doing the implementation. And so there are a lot of, I think we're seeing a lot of design flaws that could have been corrected if we got the right stakeholders to have this discussion together earlier. And so I think one of the things that we're trying to do when we are starting new projects is being a little bit more deliberate about who needs to be involved at critical junctures of that design or implementation process. But we're not always perfect at it either, and I think it's just one thing that I would, one observation I have about where there's, I think a lot of positive energy, but we're not working together in the right way. We're too siloed. I think a lot of the ideas that I see here, I mean, I think the first issue is about you have to get people to be aware of the product you're working on, and I think there's the storytelling part of it is like, why is this better or more transformative than what people are already doing? And I think a lot of the questions here were meant to help you think about that as you're building your business case. But then there's the idea of getting it out there with the right people, right? And so I do think events like this are really important for that aspect about networking, meeting new people, because you never know who's going to be interested in the idea that you have. So.
Thank you. We hear you on the collaboration part, the Global Resilience Partnership. Ade, at the Autodesk Foundation, you sit close to the tech, engineering, and design edge. What would you say is the opportunity for resilience innovation in resource-constrained environments, such as informal settlements?
Yeah. At the foundation, we tend to think about it in 3 buckets, right? So we think about a solution. Is it an innovation play? Are they bringing something new? Can we help catalyze the technology and direct that underlying technology? And then we think about, is it a scale play? Is it helping to increase access? So maybe you've already de-risked the technology, but just kind of figure out how do you get to more solutions, more people, more populations. And then the third aspect we think about is it an ecosystem development play, right? So are you helping to make the underlying ecosystem more resilient to that solution? And I think for us, especially within informal settlements and the role of technology, even in the solutions that we had today that had an AI layer, which is why I probed, like, what is the exact thing that AI is adding that something else can't do, right? Because we have to figure out how to ensure that we're being as effective as we are with the resources that we have to our disposal, right? And I think another thing I also look at is the kind of partners that we need to bring into it. So it could be, how do we ensure we're helping to direct the technology? Maybe that could be through technical assistance for solutions that we work in our portfolio. Maybe that could be a shared CFO for different portfolio companies, right? Just ensuring that with little we can go further and with more collaborative efforts.
Sounds great. Yalis, so Trafigura Foundation is both a grant maker and an investor. What would it take to see many more successful graduation stories? And what does a viable graduation pathway look like for a nonprofit innovator?
If I only knew, right? That would be the perfect pathway, right? And that's what we aim to do, right? By providing, we see grants and impact investing are just tools. We don't say we only do this or that because we try to match the right type of capital to the need of the entrepreneurs. So if I can give you an advice is identify what type of capital are you looking for at what moment to do what, right? So when we provide a grant, we often try to see, is this model scalable? So is it replicable? How many people is going to give me, right? But maybe what you need is what Abe said. Maybe you need a CFO. Maybe you need, working capital to strengthen your own processes. So be mindful about the type of capital you're looking, the type of partnership you're entering, and what is at stake. What are the outcomes? Because, maybe somebody is going to tell you, you have failed because you promised me 5 million people. And in the end, what you needed was to strengthen the model to start with. So And once all of these issues have been settled, then the graduation comes easier. And then you see the investment model, then you see the investment pathway. It is a pathway. It's not one is ready for the other. It's really accompanying the businesses at the right moment with the right type of capital.
Yeah. And helping them understand what is this.
What is needed?
This
What
capital
type
that
of
they
capital
need.
are you needing? And
Yeah.
what are the trade-offs, right? Because
Different
there are
kinds
trade-offs.
of capital and the collaboration.
Yes,
Right.
and partners, I totally
Yeah.
agree. Partners, willing to do that because, there are not that many who are willing to take those early stage risks.
Sounds great. Katrina, it's really exciting to see the impact of FCDO's support into the Hindu Kush Himalaya Innovation Challenge, which we run in partnership with ECMOD. The cohort that Build Up Nepal is part of leveraged 8 times private capital against their grant amounts. We also know there is an increasing pressure on public finance to de-risk private capital. From FCDO's perspective, what does it take to turn a result like that into a replicable playbook that crowds in even more capital into scaling these solutions?
Thanks. Another lovely question. I think it builds on really well, though, from what Yalis just said. And I think, firstly, yeah, really successful projects that we had through the Hindu Kush Innovation Challenge. And I think, yeah, I wrote down here that in the last phase, we supported 7 mountain-based adaptation enterprises, and they managed to leverage $1.1 million in investments. And that was predominantly from the kind of private private capital, local private capital. So really interesting about what it's managed to stimulate rather than just more additional or concessional or grant finance. So really great. I think building on where we feel the success came in that, but I'm sure actually Build Up Nepal and others would be better able to articulate what felt like success to them in that partnership. But really we felt like it was more than just grants. So it's providing grant finance to catalyze the work, but it goes alongside sort of capacity building, training, mentorship, looking at investment pathways, engaging people with kind of the local kind of organizations and the community of people who might be interested in their services or products. It looks at kind of marketing, all of these elements that makes business successful and can navigate some of those challenges that a new business faces as well. Because we recognize that these are kind of challenging to get off the ground with the kind of enabled environment, and these are some of the bigger picture questions we always also focus on. I think that at a global level, what we're trying to also do is different. We're trying to kind of address some of those barriers that are faced in terms of bigger finance and how concessional finance works and how we can make it work faster and get to the right people. But I think it's these kind of local-led enterprises that we can also focus on, and how can we make learnings from those that can be taken, either replicated in other places, or can we consolidate groupings so that you can create an investment pool as well, which I know in the last session, I think Felicity spoke about many things that I thought, yes, yes, yes. And I think it applies across the board at whatever size of project or business, that getting the investment story right, understanding who you're marketing to, and understanding your market and the barriers, be they political or be they sort of contextual, that you're facing and trying to chip away at them. And I think where we have value is providing that support and sort of trying to nurture those startups to get to the next stage.
Thank you. Yeah, both the local, very hands-on engagement and this global finance conversation as well. Sounds great. So I'll open to the floor. We have a few more minutes of Q&A. Does anyone in the room have a question? You can raise your hand. We'll bring the mic to you.
You must have a question.
We didn't get enough time, so take some more.
We'll have a question there. we'll also keep some time for more comments from the innovators.
Hi, thanks so much. You all should be really proud. Excellent work you're doing and helpful feedback. My name is Michael. I work at the ClimateWorks Foundation on the intersection of climate and displacement. And I think specifically for those looking at weather forecasting and AI models, I have a curiosity about how, especially working on the continent of Africa, one challenge we've seen in our early warning system and anticipatory action is the accuracy of localized weather modeling, just knowing that the coverage of the meteorological system is not as robust as other places, particularly in Sudan, just given the challenges of information itself. How are you thinking about accurate, localized data and not over-reliance on what AI might be driving or what the WMO might be providing to the system?
Hello everyone. I'm Isra Al-Ghadi and I'm a project manager of Daraja Early Warning and Weather Forecast Service in Sudan, and which is one of our pilots is Daraja plus AI for Sudan. So it's a big umbrella. Regarding the accuracy of the weather forecasts that we get from the meteorological service in Sudan, so they use weather models and their also expertise and also rely on information from automatic weather stations that comes from those stations around Sudan. So on daily basis, the forecasters sit down together and discuss all the data that's coming from these models, and based on their expertise, they create the weather bulletins and early warnings. And this process actually really create high accuracy of the weather forecast. And also on the other side, we make sure to track the accuracy of these weather forecasts depending on our networks. So we do have climate ambassadors networks who are spread all over Sudan, who provide feedback on the warnings and the forecast that is issued by SMA on daily basis. Thank you.
Danila, and I think you'll address one of the earlier questions as well. So I just wanted to highlight that the Raja, the flagship program of Resurgence, focuses on the last mile dissemination of weather forecast and early warning. Now, in regards of upstream improvement on forecast, there's been a major investment from Google and others. So there's been a massive progress in improving the weather forecast and especially impact-based forecast as well. And a lot of this is using AI models. However, the main gap exists also on the communication of that forecast. A lot of the forecast comes out in CAP formats, very technical for last mile communities. And so there's an issue on access. A lot of informal settlement communities are just detached from infrastructure and don't even receive normal weather forecasts in 2026. And if they do receive it, they receive it on a format and language that they do not understand and they can't act upon. So again, on an earlier question, the Raja doesn't just disseminate the forecast, so they sit and go through a co-creation and co-design with communities so that they can derive an actionable format. But also they work with communities and local schools and religious centers and so on in order to derive an early action plan and identify all the evacuation or the law intervention that the community, law intervention actions that communities can take to protect themselves.
Thank you. Let's take one more question, and then I'll let the other innovators also. I think we had one already here. Okay, we'll take 2 questions.
Thank you very much, and for the very inspirational work and fantastic things going on. I just had a question actually more for the funder side of a lot of the interventions we've heard about today are very much on the early warning, essentially a humanitarian plus type of interventions. So I'm interested in how you're putting this in terms of the wider benchmarks for actual resilience and disaster prevention, and also how much you're looking at building resilience in your mitigation portfolios, making sure that, for example, the investments that you're making on the greenhouse gas reduction side are not vulnerable to climate shocks and volatility moving forward. And if you're looking at any sort of bundling of financing or risk transfer in that, because that also seems that it would be quite helpful for helping some of these interventions get bundled to scale. Thanks.
Yeah, I could have a go at that. So for example, at the foundation, we have also a climate mitigation portfolio, in addition to our climate adaptation portfolio, something that is top of mind for us. So I think one example I would say, for example, even the fact that we have like early warning systems that might not necessarily translate to like actual infrastructure resilience, I think they are a needed layer, like a first step. Like having that first step is needed for the whole full stack for adaptation. The second thing would be on the mitigation angle that you asked. Definitely, that's something that funders are already looking at, and even companies are already thinking about, like, how do we ensure that our infrastructure are resilient? I was already saying to one of my colleagues that even this year, like, A&R is very, like, it's more prevalent than last London Climate Week, right? So that topic has already been getting more traction, like, even within the circles. Another thing that we are also saying is that solutions that have dual benefits, so both mitigation and adaptation, are able to do better because they can speak to mitigation investors. They can also speak to adaptation investors. They're able to get funding from both sources. And I think when you can get funding from different pools of capital, that's also very important.
That's also building resilience. Anyone else? Or we'll take a new question.
I mean, happy to sort of add, and I mean, again, we'll, as Acumen, we don't invest in mitigation itself either, but really that dual purpose of, you know, off-grid solar, thinking about sustainable, you know, agriculture and sequestration and so on. So I mean, I think that really is our thinking, is how can we sort of bring these two worlds together? You know, there's obviously, I don't know what the number is at the moment, but adaptations is hugely underfunded, right? And so I think it's partly our responsibility as investors to also shift that narrative to rather think not only as adaptation or resilience, but adaptation and resilience. And then from a sort of at a sort of a enterprise level, you know, we also, in the ag sector, for example, is really trying to think critically about how the supply chain is becoming resilient and what we as investors can do through partnerships, through our technical assistance, through really just feet on the ground and providing knowledge to building the strength of their supply chains. How can we sort of help strengthen the smallholder farmers' resilience, not only the business itself, you know, so sort of where they sort of come together. So, yeah.
And maybe if I can add on my side, you know, personally, again, I cover mainly impact investing, right, for the foundation. And we do climate adaptation and resilience, but we have a cap on agriculture. And it has been very challenging to find investment opportunities in the adaptation space, right? And I think one of my questions was often, who is there to pay for it? Because this is, you know, and often it's the government, often it's the humanitarian organizations, right? But not the private sector. But it is true that what I've been seeing emerging a little bit is the insurance sector, because they are realizing how much their assets or the assets that they are insured, that there is value in the anticipatory action and in resilience, that it's not just linked to agriculture value chain, but it's very challenging. And a lot of these models, they rely on parametric insurance, a lot of the, the heat. So I'm still yet to see a lot of investments made in adaptation besides agriculture, because the business models are more challenging. Revenue models are more challenging.
Thank you. I can't see because it's very bright in the back, but I think we have a question.
I would like to address another aspect. You said it is difficult to communicate these solutions to the communities or to humans. But I think it's also important that we communicate to machines in the right way, because to use AI, you have to make your data fully AI ready with fair principles, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable principles. And I have not heard anything about this, although it is proven that this makes a lot of a big difference if you make sure that your data is actually interoperable and reusable.
Do you want to address to
the fair principles? Never heard about the fair principles? Findable.
I think you need to hold the mic a bit closer. We couldn't hear you very well.
Okay. So
is it for the dragons, the question?
No. In general, if this is, if you are aware of the fair principles, that this should be actually something important to consider when investing in such projects, because the data must be reusable also after the projects are accomplished.
So. Thank you. Yeah. So do you want to comment on the fair principles data? We'll look it up. We all have homework. I'll give 1 minute. Again, I'm sorry to be giving you these stressful minutes for one final message that you want to leave, since there were many questions to all of you. Do you want to, maybe, since you had, Daraja had a chance to answer one of the questions directly, we'll go from Salma and then we can pass them. Do you want to come up with 1 minute?
Okay, just answer the question that was asked.
One message that you want to leave everyone in the room with.
So I wanted to answer one of the questions that I hadn't had the chance to. So we made sure that our project is affordable even to government. So basically it's going to cost around $40,000 per location per year. So this would be able that it's going to be easily to integrate it with all the government initiative or the community partnership that we already met. I think that's it.
Thank you. Do you want to?
Yes, I guess I would say that as well as trying to provide immediate impact through cash for conservation to communities in need, our model is ultimately about changing how investment and how philanthropy is done, trying to shift the inherent dynamics, the power asymmetries, the control that sometimes exists around wealth holders, and trying to devolve that money, that power, and that control to local communities who ultimately deserve it more.
All right, I will just try to complete the question that I was asked, and it's about the funders of this initiative. And I want to say that we have a Life Partners dashboard. Now, on this dashboard, it's made up of different organizations. So they can see, for example, we have been able to detect about 5 risks in a particular community. And sexual and reproductive health is divided into various areas. So by diseases, by complications, and by community well-being, that's environmental health too. So we can see that, in this community, there are this number of people that have high risks of these issues, and they need to be sent supplies or services. Now, we have also spoken to partners, and they are very interested in this because this is something that they usually cannot see until disaster has occurred, and we are providing that kind of solution. And it's not just for sexual and reproductive health. We tend to expand to other areas of in the health system. So, yeah.
So for me, I'm taking this suggestion from her, like there should be what type of partnership is needed for what type of capital. So we need to plan for right capital at the right moment. I'm taking this as a suggestion, and I also wanted to reply to other queries that the Dragon had. So we are asking for the grant funding of 2.5 million so that we can build 50,000 homes in Nepal, set up 500 enterprises, reduce 500,000 tons of CO2, and expand this model across South Asia, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, wherever there is this climate crisis. And this funding support will go for policy support, because our BRICS has been already approved by Nepal government, but still there are no clear norms and specification. We'll be working on that. We'll be working on access to finance so that the entrepreneurs can get a 0% loan. The beneficiaries can get 0% loan to build their houses. Similarly, we are raising this for demand creation, raising awareness about our eco-bricks, and also for the quality support, which is a much needed step that we have to do. And besides the 2.5 million of grant funding, we are also looking for carbon financing support, because we have not yet entered into this market. We are reducing CO2 emission at 2 steps. At first, while making the bricks, and other while building the houses. So we want to enter this market. That's why we are looking for some suitable partners. Hope I clarified your queries and all. Thank you.
Let me also answer one more question I wasn't able to answer before. It's about the incentive payments upfront to the farmers, and why we do this, and why it's also helping for the carbon market and the future investability, is that the survival rates of the trees are much higher. Farmers are very much engaged. They receive on their M-Pesa, so I don't know if on their wallet, and they're very encouraged to be part of the program. They see we are trustworthy. They see us on the ground. We have very much underground presence, and we've built trust on the ground throughout the years. The harvests are ready. The buyers are there. We're now to navigate, and it's indeed a very challenging landscape. And I hope we can take this conversation further, and you can help us navigate the next steps to make this very profitable for all the farmers at the front lines. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is exactly how it happens, because we want to keep the conversation going. There are so many questions to answer. But we're going to now close. I want to thank our dragons for their feedback, for accepting to join us. Thank you especially to our innovators for coming here. That is kind of nerve-wracking as well, so thank you for accepting to go through this with us, especially when I throw you off by calling your name like the wrong name, so sorry about that. Thank you and congratulations. So what just happened here is exactly what Jasper was describing in the beginning of the session, that this is the conversation that at GIP we feel like we need much more of. A few concrete things before we close. If you are a dragon and something sparked in you today, please don't hesitate. The innovators are here, and I know they would be keen to keep the conversation going. Or have you introduced them to someone who could be of use to them? Because a conversation could really lead to other good things. I'm also here through the rest of the day, and along with my excellent colleagues from the GRP team. You can come and find us. And if all of us, if you're here in this room and you see a fit, a geography, a gap in your portfolio, a funder connection for one of these entrepreneurs, I would also encourage you to act on it. And at GIP, we'll continue to follow up with every project. We'll share what we learn. And as Jasper was saying in the beginning, we don't just give money and wave goodbye. That is not what this is. So we are nurturing an ecosystem. And the ecosystem only exists because we're all in it. So thank you, and let's keep going.